There is a quiet moment that changes everything. It does not arrive with applause. No one congratulates you. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside. But internally, something shifts. You stop absorbing opinions automatically. You stop moving on borrowed beliefs. You begin thinking for yourself. Stoicism teaches that this moment is the beginning of real freedom. Not freedom from rules, but freedom from manipulation, from the expectations of others, from the invisible pressure to live according to standards you never chose. When you start thinking for yourself, life does not get easier. It gets clearer, and clarity is power. Most people never reach this point. They live on mental autopilot. They repeat what they hear. They defend ideas they never examined. They follow paths that were handed to them without question. Stoicism warns that an unexamined mind is an open door. Anyone can walk in society. Fear, authority, popular opinion. When you do not think for yourself, you are always reacting. Always adjusting. Always trying to keep up. The Stoic chooses another path. One of deliberate thought and inner command. Thinking for yourself begins with awareness. You start noticing how often your thoughts are not really yours. You catch yourself chasing approval. You hear your inner voice repeating things you were taught without proof. Stoicism encourages you to pause here, not to rebel blindly, but to examine carefully. What do you actually know? What do you merely believe because it was convenient? This pause is uncomfortable. It strips away certainty, but it also removes illusion. And illusion is what keeps most people trapped. When you begin thinking for yourself, your relationship with authority changes. You no longer accept ideas just because they come from someone powerful, older, or louder. Stoicism does not teach disrespect. It teaches discernment. You learn to separate wisdom from status, truth from popularity. This alone transforms your life. You stop being easily impressed. You stop being easily intimidated. You listen carefully, but you decide independently. Powerful people notice this. So do manipulators. One respects it, the other avoids you. Another shift happens in your emotions. When your thinking becomes your own, emotional chaos loses its grip. Stoicism shows that most emotional suffering comes from borrowed judgments. You feel angry because you were taught something is an insult. You feel ashamed because you were taught something is a failure. When you examine these judgments, many collapse. You realize you were reacting to stories, not reality. Thinking for yourself brings emotional sovereignty. You still feel, but you are no longer owned by feeling. This is also when loneliness may appear. When you think for yourself, you outgrow certain conversations. Certain circles no longer resonate. Stoicism prepares you for this. It teaches that solitude is not a punishment. It is often a refinement. When you stop thinking like everyone else, you stop blending in, and blending in was never the goal. Clarity was. Integrity was. Inner alignment was. The Stoic understands that temporary isolation is the price of long-term freedom. As your thinking sharpens, your speech changes. You talk less. You listen more. You no longer argue to prove intelligence. You no longer explain yourself to be understood by everyone. Stoicism values restraint. When your thoughts are your own, You do not need constant validation. Silence becomes a tool, not a weakness. People begin to feel your presence differently. Not louder, heavier, more grounded. This is where influence begins. Not because you demand it, but because independence is rare. When you think for yourself, you stop being predictable. You are no longer pulled by trends or panic. Stoicism teaches that unpredictability rooted in principle is strength. Others begin to pay attention. Not because you chase attention, but because you are no longer chasing anything. At this point, if this message resonates, subscribe to the channel. This space is for those who want clarity, discipline, and Stoic strength, not noise. Subscribe now to keep sharpening your thinking. Thinking for yourself also transforms how you deal with success and failure. Stoicism removes the emotional extremes. You stop attaching your identity to outcomes. You evaluate results calmly. You improve without self-hatred. You accept loss without collapse. This mental balance is impossible without independent thinking. If your standards are borrowed, your emotions will always be controlled by forces outside you. The Stoic reclaims authorship of meaning. Another quiet change happens in your relationships. You stop needing people to agree with you to feel secure. You stop tolerating subtle disrespect to keep peace. Stoicism teaches self-respect through clarity. When you think for yourself, your boundaries become calm and firm. You do not explain them endlessly. You do not enforce them emotionally. You simply live by them. People adjust or disappear. Both outcomes bring peace. When you think for yourself, fear loses leverage. Fear thrives on confusion and dependence. Stoicism dismantles both. You begin asking better questions. What is actually under my control? What am I imagining? What is truly at stake? This rational lens reduces anxiety. You stop catastrophizing. You stop living in imagined futures. You act where action matters. You release what does not. This mindset changes your pace. You stop rushing to match others. You stop measuring your life against timelines you did not choose. Stoicism teaches that haste often hides insecurity. Independent thinkers move deliberately. They understand timing. They trust process. They know that depth always outlasts speed. This patience becomes visible. Others feel it and they respect it. The greatest shift of all is purpose. When you think for yourself, you stop orbiting other people's goals. You define your own direction, not impulsively, thoughtfully. Stoicism aligns your actions with reason and values. You begin moving towards something meaningful instead of reacting away from discomfort. Your life gains momentum, and momentum attracts opportunity. Stoicism reminds us that thinking for yourself is not rebellion. It is responsibility. It means owning your judgments, your reactions, your choices. It means refusing to outsource your mind. When you do this, everything changes. Not overnight, not dramatically, but permanently. If this helps sharpen your thinking, subscribe to the channel. More Stoic wisdom is coming for those who choose clarity over comfort, discipline over distraction, and truth over approval.